Oh, fuck. Oh, my toe.
Tiny
I'm hanging off of these guys.
Alright.
No.
What the hell are you guys? I'm gonna show. Alright. Goodbye.
The guy, cool room.
Actually, I managed to frighten my dog by doing that.
And you motherfuckers. Go fuck your mom.
Goodbye. And that's how we're gonna.
Oh! Bye! God damn it! Run.
I don't know. That's about it. And then I guess I'll see you guys out in Florida. So, yeah.
But yeah, hopefully on to bigger, better things and a better version of myself. See you guys later. See you on the other side. Love you guys. Bye.
Oh my god. It's cold. Turn the freaking heater on. Oh my god, it is cold. Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, hi. This is really weird. Not that it's weird, it's just it's been a hot minute since I've made a video. And for my car warm up. But yeah, how have you guys been? I missed you guys. I genuinely missed you guys, and I don't know why I feel kind of nervous making this video, because I feel like it's because I've been gone for so long. Is that I feel like I kind of lost you guys. But I mean, if you're watching this video, then that's living proof that you guys are still here, which will forever mean the world to me, because you guys mean the world to me. But yeah, I don't even know how long it's been. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a while since I last picked up this camera. Hell, I'm not the same person since I last picked up this camera, and I started to notice that I was sitting for a while, starting to take dust, and I was like, oh shit. But yeah, oh yeah, freaking. It's Saturday, December 20th, 10:42 p.m. or a.m. not p.m. a.m. And I don't know. Today, I got a few errands to run. I don't know why I'm making this into a vlog, but I'm gonna bring you guys with me. So yeah, and also, let me know if the audio sounds better or worse. Over my absence, I bought me this little cool microphone that I think I'm gonna show to you guys here in a minute. But yeah, but I haven't really. I've tested it a few times. I have to make sure that thing's on, because it has a switch to turn it on at the top there. And then the last time I tested it, it was off, and I'm like, why is there no audio? It's because dumbass, you fucking forgot to turn the thing on. So it's on. Hopefully it sounds good. Hopefully it's not too overbearing. But yeah, just let me know, because I'm trying to, get better quality videos, and just better in general, because, holy crap, there's big ass snowflakes coming down now. Sorry. But yeah, so I guess, we'll see where this video takes us, and there's been a lot of serious self-growth that has happened, but we'll get into that later, because I know I definitely want to talk about what has happened since I've been gone, and what I've been dealing with, most importantly, and, yeah, I guess we're gonna roll with the punches. So yeah, let's just see where this thing takes us. Look, these guys are huge. You guys see that? Look at that. These guys are huge. You guys see those snowflakes? They're huge. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, I think first off, I'm gonna go get some gas, because I'm low on gas. So I'm gonna go get gas, and then we'll have to stop at the store for a few reasons. And then, I don't know, maybe afterwards I might get myself coffee, maybe treat myself a little bit. That's one thing, too, that you guys have to learn, too, is that since I've become a big coffee drinker. So, yeah, but I guess we're gonna to the gas station.
When you're looking for a chemical reaction in your brain to fight the monsters you've created, just know you're the one to blame. You have to fight for something when it's all for nothing, dead and gone. Erase all the mistakes you've made along the way. Although it hurts to stay alive, the soon the worst to kick it into overdrive. I can't stand to see you broken and
Focus! God damn it. Focus! There we go. We made it! Made it to the gas station! I just realized my first impression coming back to YouTube is setting a horrible example. Don't film and drive, kids!
I'm a prisoner to these memories. We feel the pressure slowly creeping.
Yeah, we wait.
This is me. I'm the only one who can see the shadows in the sun. I can hear the whispers echo through the walls.
Oh man, I really need to stop letting my tank get that low. Anyways, to the store. Hey guys, I really don't know how to go about this, but you know, I never really truly prepared myself for this kind of video or documentary or whatever the whole idea of what I wanted this to be. And I've also had this idea in mind for a long time, because I know I wanted to make a video to you guys about like what has been going on, what's been going on in my mind, my personal life, my mental state, you know, work, you know, like everything. Because I feel like I owe you guys that, because you guys have been so good to me. I feel like I don't even deserve it, because you guys have been that good to me. Just so you know, this is going to be a little heavy. I feel like it's going to be pretty heavy at times, because I'm going to be uncovering it all here, because I just want to get it all off. That way it can just be more happy, upbeat, fun videos in the future, very near future, and because I've been down in the dumps for way too long, way too fucking long, and the one thing I feel like people don't ever tell you, or tell people, or what people tell others that are going through it, is that you never truly get out of the rut once you're fucking tired of being in that rut. Because that's been me these last 8 years, and I feel like in those 8 years I've become comfortable in that rut, because at some point in time it felt normal, and whatever feels normal to us for some reason starts to feel safe, because it feels familiar and it feels right because it's familiar, you know. And I think I just finally got tired of my new familiar, and I'm ready for the unknown. I'm ready for what's out in the unknown. I'm, at the same time, you know, I'm very fucking terrified, because I'm afraid of the unknown not working out, whatever it is. And part of that unknown is coming back to YouTube as a brand new me, because I don't know if you guys know, but like when this last weekend, when I I'm already starting off kind of heavy, but this past weekend, when I finally decided to pull out my camera that I haven't touched in, I'd say probably since me and Hunter made that one fucking excuse my language, that one blog, way back in the spring this year, I feel like a completely different person. Like, and when I say I feel like a completely different person, I literally feel like a different person. But I know the different person that I feel that I am is more authentic and is more true to who I am, because I'm starting to learn to actually feel comfortable with who I am, because I'm never going to try to be something that I'm not. That's been my whole thing. I'm never going to try to be something that I'm not. And yeah, that's just, at the end of the day, like, I believe everybody should be like their true authentic selves, because I feel like once you're your true authentic self, you will find the people that will be true to you, that will be loyal to you, instead of having fake friends, fake relationships, etc. I feel like by the end of this, whenever that'll be, I feel like I would have let go a lot, and then I feel like I can finally move on to the unknown, but not be scared of the unknown, but to be excited for it. Because part of me is, and which is crazy to think about, because I always feared the unknown of what's to come in the future. I've always feared it, but part of me just kind of wants to just go for it and feel excited for it, because I haven't felt that way in a long time. And like, I haven't felt that feeling in probably almost 4 years, and that is such a long fucking time. Excuse my language, but these last 4 years for me have been hectic. Like, since the moment I turned 17, I'm almost 21 now. Because I will say, I feel like this is granted, like, I'll go way back where I want to start, but I'll just address this. I feel like once I turned 17, I finally felt like the kid that I was from when I was young to pretty much a young teenager. I felt like that kid was meant to stay there in 2021, 2022, whatever you want to call it, because I felt different once I was 17. I don't know what it was, but I felt different. I felt ready to go into the unknown. I started talking to new people. I even put together a friend group, if you guys remember that. And I had a relationship. I'm just going to call it a relationship, because it was not, I'll say healthy, but it was not a healthy relationship whatsoever. But little did I know that, like, that part of that version of me was going to be, like, probably the most broken version of me, because, man, these last couple of years, I wouldn't wish those kind of things on anybody. I used to, but I've grown, and even on the people that I feel like that hurt me, that I didn't deserve to be hurt, I don't wish it on them either, because it sucks. It genuinely sucks, and it's so unforgiving. And yeah. And side note, let me know how the audio sounds, because this is my first time using this microphone right here, and I kind of want to put it in frame just because I kind of wanted to flex a little bit. And this chair is new. It kind of looks like my old one from years ago. I don't know if you guys noticed, but this is a new chair. I love it. My cousin Adam put it together for me. Shout out to him. He's been fucking awesome. And he's been so supportive and just so much help when it has come to YouTube and being able to feel excited. He's really a big part of why I feel excited to come back to YouTube again, because he talks about how, like, we need to play games online and stuff like that, and and just he's been so much help. So shout out to him. I don't give him much credit, but I'm letting my guard down in this documentary, so there you fucking go. But anyways, honestly, I should probably tell you guys the true backstory of my life. So I'd say I had a pretty normal childhood. From as long as I can remember till at least the age of 12, 13. I always had like a normal childhood. Like, I mean, I had my mom and dad, I had my brother, my sister, you know, and I was a pretty upbeat, happy kid, even though that I was a handful at times, but other than that, I was a fairly happy kid, and I feel like I was a good kid for what I known back then as a kid. But in a sense, part of me has always felt left out, as in, I just felt like I was always looked down upon, not necessarily like in a disrespectful way, but in a way of just like, oh, like, I'm just another member of the family. Like, oh, I'm the youngest. Like, at the end of the day, I'm just another kid in the family, and I'm just a kid. Like, no one's gonna really take me seriously, you know. Like, I never felt like I was ever taken seriously as a kid because I was just a kid, you know. And as we go about this, I'm just gonna try to describe everything the best way I possibly can and have it make sense. But I never had a lot of friends growing up. Again, that sounds like we're starting this off on a very sad note, but it's true. I never really had a lot of friends growing up. Like, I had friends from school all the time, you know, but like, I never had friends that developed from school to outside of school. It was always just in school. And there were times where, like, you thought who were your friends were really your friends, you know. I went through that a lot, I feel like, in elementary and middle school. Yeah, I feel like that was just kind of like the pattern, you know, of like just having friends that were just in school from like kindergarten to probably first, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, probably from like that on point to like fourth grade, until I got into fifth grade. It wasn't really until my second year of fifth grade, because let's see, we're talking, my life didn't, because like I was a pretty happy kid until I genuinely believe this too, that I first experienced grief, that I think I first experienced depression at the age of 10. And the reason for that is because, well, rewind back to when I was 9. That's when things started to get rough. So at the age of 9, so we're talking 2014, or November of 2014, my dad got really sick. Like really, really sick, to the point it was life-threatening. I don't know the whole backstory on it. I'm just going to tell it the best way I can, because again, I was in 4th grade at the time. I was 9, so I didn't really know a whole lot. I didn't really understand a whole lot that was going on, other than what was obvious, you know, that was going on. What happened is my dad got sick, and I remember coming home from school one day. Well, it was actually the beginning of December of 2014, I believe. If I remember the exact date, which is really weird, it was December 9th of 2014. So at that time, I was taking the bus from my elementary school, and I remember getting dropped off from the school bus in my neighborhood and walking home, seeing, once I, you know, knocked on the door and Mind you, this was still like 3, 4 p.m. and my dad has been a mechanic his whole life, but he usually wouldn't come home till like 6 o'clock at night because he would close the shop and everything and won't come home till about 6 o'clock each night. But it was still like 3, 4 o'clock, and my dad opened the door. He was still in his work uniform and everything. I noticed in the back of my head that being odd because, like, even as a young kid, like, you can pick up on routines, like everyday routines, and when it switches on you, you notice that. And so that's why I noticed. I was like, Dad's home early, I wonder what happened. But that didn't really, like, click through my head as a 9-year-old. I remember my dad answering the door, and I remember something feeling really off with him. This is just really kind of, I never really talked about this, so bear with me, or talk about this to you guys at least. But I remember, my dad opened the door, and he just seemed very odd. His breathing was like a little weird, like he was like out of breath or something. Like he was kind of heavily breathing, but I didn't think too much of it. And so I was always kind of a mama's boy. So I would always clench to my mom whenever, like, I feel like my dad was being too hard on me and stuff. So whenever it was like me and him in the house, I'd always be anxious because I feel like he would holler my name to like help him with something or do him a favor, and I was afraid of messing that up and him getting frustrated with me. So yeah, I was a sensitive kid. So with me and him being the only ones home at the time, I was also had like a tired day, So I was like, like I'm gonna go lay down, I'm gonna take a nap. And if my dad needs me, he needs me, So I remember going to my room and set my school bag down, my backpack, just winding down, and I went and laid down. And I remember falling asleep fairly quick. Like, it didn't take me long to really fall asleep because I guess I was really tired that day. And then I wake up to my brother because at the time in our room we had like this gray box TV, and I think my brother was playing a game on it, but I remember waking up to that, and it was already dark at the time. I couldn't remember how much longer it had been since I had fallen asleep, but I remember waking up to my brother playing a game on the box TV. He was like sitting on the floor, playing the game. Sorry for the voice crack. I'm a little emotional and I'm a little nervous talking about this because again, this is information that I've never told you guys, and this is information I haven't really thought about in a long time. Now that I'm like digging deep into it. But I woke up to my brother playing his game, and then shortly after that, it was time for dinner, and I can't remember what we had for dinner, but it was like it was something fast, like some of that stuff that felt like you throw in the microwave, and and we ate it out like a bowl, like a soup thing. I can't remember what it was. I really can't remember what it was. Like, I can see it, but I can't remember the name of it. But it was like a soup thing, you just throw it in the microwave. It wasn't ramen. It wasn't anything like ramen. I just want to put that out there. I don't even know if we had ramen in the house at all at that time. But it was something like ramen, but not quite. It was easy to make, and And so, like, again, like, when you're used to a routine as a young kid, and like one day it switches, you notice that. That was the same thing with dinner, because it was quick, and I was like, that's weird. Like, Mom usually makes like a fairly cooked meal that takes a fair amount of time each night, And so I thought that was weird, but I didn't think much of it. it was me, my brother and sister. We all, you know, got our bowls of that stuff, and we sat down, or I think I sat down first, and I started, you know, eating. And then shortly after that, my mom comes through the front door, and when she came through the front door, she seemed somewhat calm, but then again, like, you could tell, like, she was kind of in a panic mode with the way she was moving, with the way her voice sounded and stuff like that. But, like, right then and there, like, she, like, one of the first things she said was, "Dad's in the hospital." She said something after that, and I think Mom was, like, telling, like, you know, that, like, Rannon's ever in charge. Well, Mom was gone, but Dad, it was something like that. And I just remember in that moment hearing Dad's in the hospital, like, that alone is enough for, like, a 9-year-old to be like, oh shit, like, which I was, you know. I was like, so, like, it was starting to slowly make sense from, like, the moment I came home from school and stuff like that. So stuff was slowly coming together. So I was kind of, like, in shock, because I was like, oh my god, like, Dad's in the hospital, like, is he dying? Like, again, like, because when you think of someone in the hospital, you think they're dying, you know. I mean, at least that's how I thought at the age of, like, 9. But yeah, fast forward a little bit. Since that day, I didn't see my dad for 2 weeks. And thinking back at that now, that was a really hard time to really, I guess, kind of to digest as a 9-year-old when you're so used to seeing your parents every day at that age. And I remember I didn't see my dad for 2 weeks after that. But I remember at one point I had to stay with I had to stay with one of my neighbors, Stacy. If you guys remember Stacy, I actually lived with her and the folks for a year, and then they took me in after moving from Florida. So amazing people. I hope they're doing well now. They're very sweet people. But at the time, I was staying with them because we weren't allowed to be home for a while because Mom was never home, Dad was never home. You know, they're always, like, back and forth from the hospital. So that was the routine for a little bit. I remember I stayed at Stacy's for a little bit, and then after that, I actually stayed here at my grandmother's with my sister there for a little bit. I remember because we kind of got, like, a little bit of info, or, like, we kind of filled, like, you know, like, my grandma and my grandpa in at the time, because I think it was just my grandma and grandpa, my Uncle Ryan, who lived at the house at the time. And so it was nice, you know, staying with family than Stacy's, because Stacy's was still, like, a new thing. Like, we're getting to know them as neighbors, but, like, my mom, like, knew Stacy, trusted Stacy enough to, like, do those things for us. So, but I just, like, I prefer staying at my grandmother's because, like, it's with family that I know, and it's really at the time, it was my second home, other than my main home. So it was nice to kind of stay there and go to school and then go back there. So 1 week, because 1 week I was at Stacy's, and that next week I was here at my grandmother's, who I live with now. I remember the day that I saw my dad again for the first time in 2 weeks. I was here. I remember I was sick or I had some sort of cough, because I remember I had to wear a mask as we were entering the hospital. Because my mom informed me that day, like, hey, like, you're going to see Dad today, because I remember my dad had always seen Rhiannon and Zach prior to this, and the reason I couldn't is because the room he was in, I was too young. You had to be 13 and up, which I thought was weird at that age, because I was like, oh, aren't all hospital rooms the same, you know? Which I guess they're not. So like, okay, that's weird, whatever. And I remember the closer we got to the hospital, the more nervous I felt, because I was like, I haven't seen Dad in 2 weeks. I don't know if he looks better or looks worse. Like, I didn't know what to expect with seeing my dad again. Like, I didn't know how he was going to react, or if he was like under like medication, or what. Like I was kind of overthinking it because like I felt kind of intimidated by the situation because I didn't know like what the whole deal was with my dad at that point in time. So we get to the hospital. I had to put on a mask because I was like a little bit sick, and one of the nurses or one of the doctors told us that like, okay, like we're gonna have him come out here to the emergency room to see you and all this kind of stuff, and y'all gonna hang out for a bit. Like that's just, I was like, okay, cool. So me and Mom, you know, sit down in one of the chairs in the emergency room. And I just remember like the emergency room being empty. Like it was nighttime. It was really a whole lot going on that I remember. This was like 11 years ago. So I remember sitting there, and once I saw my dad. Once I saw my dad walking into the emergency room, he did not look good. I remember he was in his, hospital gown. He had kind of like the thing that they have to drive with, like that have like the, like the blood and like, like this stuff that like kind of like goes the whole nine. Like he was wired up and he had to take that thing with the whole bags with like the blood and stuff. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I just don't know what they're called. But he had that with him. And he looked so ill. He looked so skinny. My dad was a fairly like thin dude, but this was an unhealthy kind of skinny. And he had his glasses on. His beard was bushy because he's been in the hospital. He hasn't really had time to really like shave and stuff. Okay, got through that. But I remember walking up to my dad, to like to say hi to him. He pulled me in for a hug. He pulled me in for a hug, and this is one of the very first times, or very first couple of times in my life that I ever heard my dad like cry, like get emotional, because I just remember like as he was hugging me, like my dad was a tall dude, like my dad was 6'4", you have a 9-year-old, and he pulled me in for a hug, and I remember just feeling him like shaking because he was weak, and I could like feel like his like breathing skip because like kind of shaken because he was crying, getting emotional, and for all the times that like I would get in my head and think like, oh, like my dad doesn't care about me, But then I think about that moment, him really crying as he was hugging me, I never seen my dad let his guard down like that ever in my life. Never. Like that was probably like the most emotional that I've ever seen my dad, even now. But I remember as as everything said, me and him sat down and we played cards, and I remember like I was telling him I made up this card game, and it was with numbers that like, oh, like you put down a card, like if you have like a two of aces or like something or like a number of something, you know, if that number is larger, you collect the other person's card and that's your points, you know. And me and him did that, and I know he didn't really care about the game. I just being older now and kind of understanding my dad a little bit now because I'm older. I know he didn't care about the game. I just I knew all he cared about was I knew all he cared about in that moment was being with me. And I've never said that out loud before. And that moment sticks with me to this very day. And I used to be hard on myself in that moment because I wish I was more, I guess, emotionally vulnerable with my dad to show him that, like, I care, but I wasn't because I was just confused. But then again, I had to remind myself that I was 9 years old, you know, like, I can't really be hard on myself for that. Oh my god, this is hard. I knew this was going to be hard, but if there's any friends and family that's watching this right now and you guys are getting emotional too, I'm sorry, okay? I told y'all that this was going to get heavy at some point. And we're still fairly at the beginning. But after I kind of address everything here, it fast forward. Like, I'll fast forward in my life. But anyways, but yeah, and then eventually it was time for my dad to go back to the hospital room, and it was time for me to go back to my grandmother's because I'm pretty sure I had school the next day or whatever. But yeah, that was that, and I think 2 days go by, or like a day or two go by, and it's Christmas Eve, and we didn't know, we still haven't had word if Dad was able to come home or not, and I feel like I stayed up late Christmas Eve night just because I was just waiting on the word if Dad was coming home or not. But eventually, like, we were told to go to bed, and I remember waking up, and Dad still wasn't home yet that morning. And again, that morning, we were still waiting to get word on, like, what the deal was with Dad, if Dad was able to come home, you know. And it wasn't until, like, a few hours passed, I can't remember how long it took, but a few hours passed, we finally got word that Dad was able to come home on Christmas. And I remember Mom was ready for Dad to come home because she was even telling us kids, like, okay, like, Dad's coming home, like, get ready, we're going to the hospital, we're picking up Dad, and, you know, like, we're doing it. And so I was like, okay. So we get in the car, we all head to the hospital, and me and my brother and sister, I'm pretty sure it was just me and my sister, we stayed, you know, because there's a picking up zone in the hospital, kind of like in the airports. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. But we stayed there for a little bit because it took time to kind of like get Dad comfortably out of his hospital room, probably I think down a few floors, and then into the car and be able to go home. Can't remember how long we were waiting down there, but I feel like it was a little while. And then eventually Dad finally comes down and gets in the car, and we all head back home, and we have our normal Christmas morning routine of stockings and gifts. And during that time was when I'll show you guys right now, was when this photo was created. Yeah, we all took a picture with Dad, and me and my brother and sister all took a picture with Dad, and I could tell that, like, my dad was still in a lot of pain because he wasn't very I won't want to say emotionally available, but he wasn't very there. I don't think that's the best word, but like it was like hard for him to smile and stuff like that. Like he was just very like neutral, because I think he was in so much pain still, because he still has freaking shit all over him. I remember that, and yeah, and then after that, it was a normal Christmas day. We were very happy and blessed that that's when I truly believed in Christmas miracles, because I was like, oh, my daddy came home on Christmas Day, you know, like that's things you don't really hear about a whole lot in real life. You hear that more in like in fairy tales and stuff like that. And then yeah, and then fast forward. And then my dad eventually got better. My dad was slowly becoming himself again, after like a month or so, heading into 2015. So this is the part where I think I first started to experience depression and grief in a way, because in early spring, after my birthday, after I turned 10. So I was already 10 at this point. In early spring, my grandpa got sick. And one day, I remember my dad and my mom acting kind of like stressed, acting kind of concerned, and they kind of told me like, hey, like we're not going to be home for a little bit, but make sure like we're like leaving on you to like make sure you go to bed on time, make sure you do this, and this, you know, like talking to 10-year-old me, you know. And then like we'll be back, we're going to grandma's, and then I was like, what's going on, you know, because like they told me they're going to grandma's, and I was like, usually we go with them to go to grandma's, and then they said grandpa's sick, and then they said like we don't know what's going on with him, we don't know if he's going to get any better anytime soon. So I was like, okay, like I hope he gets better, you know. Like I remember sitting at home and just like hoping that like grandpa's okay, you know. And it wasn't shortly after that we all, well, not me, because I used to get frustrated with this because they never truly told me what was going on with grandpa until I overheard it from everyone else in the family when we were visiting him on the hospital bed here at this very house, actually. It was May 3rd of 2015. That was my grandpa's last full day ever, because he passed during the night. Everyone was there, like all kinds of family were there with him. It was very emotional. Everyone was kind of freaking out, you know, because like grandpa was like the freaking stone of the family, and it was from that point on, that from overhearing the conversations and whatnot, that my grandpa has had brain cancer, and it just wasn't getting better. And I remember seeing my grandpa, and he was very ill, but he was still responsive at some points, but he was responsive until he wasn't, putting it that way. And everyone was very emotional, and I just remember being very confused, kind of uncomfortable by the whole situation. But then again, I didn't feel too uncomfortable, because at the end of the day, I'm surrounded by family, and I cherish and love family. I remember at one point, when no one was really sitting with grandpa by his bed, I took the initiative of grabbing a chair from the dinner table, bringing it over to grandpa's hospital bed, sitting down with him, and just being there with him. I remember once he realized it was me, he kind of looked over to me, and once he saw it was me, he would make a silly face, and this kind of goes back to whenever I was over at my grandma's, my grandpa would always, whenever he would see me, he would either like say, "Oh hey Jake," or he would like see me and just make a silly face and I would laugh at it. You know, he always did that. And this was one of those moments where I got, you know, one last silly face from him while he was literally dying. And I remember, I remember laughing. I remember I kind of smirked to kind of show him that like, I see that, you know. But yeah, I can't remember how long I sat with him, but I sat with him for a very long time. I remember like, cause I remember like in the back of my mind, I was just waiting that like, he's gonna pass at some point. Like we always kind of knew he was gonna pass at some point. And I remember just sitting there, and then I kind of noticed everyone around me was kind of like seeing that like, and maybe I'm adding this because like I wasn't really told this till after I was older, because I guess like a lot of family was like very in awe of what I did, just sitting with grandpa like that, with how young I was too. Like I get told that all the time, just like how in awe people were, like my aunts and stuff, my cousins, you know, they said that like they were in awe of me for doing that. And then it wasn't until one point in time where I guess like dad, or like not dad, grandpa was starting to shut down because like he was, you know, he wasn't becoming responsive, and everyone was starting to freak out again because they thought it was time. And then that's when I was getting told to go downstairs, even though I didn't want to, because I want to be here while it happens, you know. But I wasn't allowed to because I kept getting told to go downstairs. And I was like, fine, whatever, you know. And I was downstairs for the rest of the night, and me, my siblings, my cousins, you know, stayed the night. And I'm pretty sure my aunt and my dad and stuff stayed upstairs with grandpa. And I guess it wasn't until May 4th, around 4 a.m. was when my grandpa finally passed. Because I remember them waking up that morning and walking up the stairs and seeing the hospital bed and seeing that my grandpa was no longer in the hospital bed. And then, and that's when I truly knew that my grandpa had passed. A few days later was like the viewing and stuff, and I remember going to the viewing, or it was either the viewing or the funeral. It was one of those that following week, and we all of us were able to go up to the casket, the open casket, and say our final goodbyes to grandpa. And I remember I was kind of too scared and too intimidated to really go up by myself. So my dad went with me. Mind you, my dad already, you know, went up by himself prior, you know, but then my dad did it again with me. And I remember going up and seeing my grandpa and just seeing how at peace he was. I remember I was kind of just like staring at him without saying anything. And then my dad said calmly, like, you know, like, go ahead and say your goodbyes, you know. And I remember saying out loud to grandpa, as one of the last things that I said at 10 years old, was, it was hard seeing you go. I remember this is not a good time for my stutter to be messing with you right now. I remember saying that, and that was one of the last things I said to my grandpa. I didn't even say goodbye. I just said it was hard seeing you go, because I didn't really feel like saying goodbye, I guess. And I remember shortly after that, I just remember I felt kind of alone. Like, this was one of the very first times, like, I felt alone. Because there was one time, I think I was watching YouTube on my tablet or something, because my mom had a work tablet, and she let me borrow it to, like, watch YouTube and stuff. And this is when, like, my love for, like, making videos on YouTube developed, because I would watch other YouTubers. And that was my way of, like, an escape during the time of, like, school and, like, the passing of my grandpa. I remember it was, like, kind of during the day. It was like a weekend or whatever. It was a couple weeks after. I remember that, like, after grandpa passed. And I remember just sitting in my room, broad daylight, door open and everything. But I remember just sitting there on the floor, just thinking about my grandpa and, like, thinking about life. And let alone my dad, my mom, my sister, and my brother were all watching a movie out in the living room. Because I could hear it because it was loud, you know. And I just remember sitting there just like, this is it? Like, that's it? Like we're just supposed to move on from all this? Like, I remember sitting there and asking myself, or like saying to myself, now we're just supposed to move on? Like, I remember being very confused about it. And, yeah, I just remember being very, very confused about it. And, at one of this time, too, I was having a hard time making friends. So going back to school was a little intimidating after that, you know. And then, but I just remember feeling alone and just a little depressed, because I kind of, like, would look around, like, my environment and just, like, not really like it. But then again, at that age, I didn't really understand what, like, sadness and depression was. I just remember feeling very confused and lost and kind of alone within my own space. Even when I was around my family, I was starting to feel a little alone. And I guess I would go in hand with, like, always, like, not feeling like I belong and, like, feeling like I'm underestimated and stuff like that, because I feel like I was growing up. I was underestimated. But fast forward a year later, 2016, things have been good. You know, I'm 11 at this point. My dad's the healthiest I've ever seen him. You know, like, things are normal again without grandpa, or feel normal again without grandpa. And I was struggling with school. I remember that. Because at this point I was getting harassed a lot. This was 2016. I was being harassed a lot in my second year of 5th grade, because that earlier that year, the news was broken to me that I was going to have to take 5th grade again because I didn't pass. And it was like a college preparatory school. So then I took 5th grade again. I remember kind of being upset about that, because I felt kind of like a failure. But I was like, if it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. So I went through 5th grade again, and that year was rough, because I guess you can say I had, like, my first ever relationship, if I even consider it a relationship, because I was dating this girl for a month. It only lasted a month because it went down south really fast. And one day it was the presidential election, and she asked me who was I, you know, voting for, and I was very confused, because, like, you know, like, I don't know why we should be talking about this in school. You know, we're kids. Like politics and all that is adult stuff, you know. And so And my response was to what I would overhear from my parents, and they would talk about Trump a lot and like support Trump and stuff. And then so I went like, oh, like Trump, you know. In the middle of the cafeteria, I kid you not, I get slapped across the face. And I remember being very shocked because I never been treated that way from anyone at all my entire life at that point. I remember being very shocked, and I'm like, oh, we ended up breaking up, and then she harassed me forever since then. And she would call me all kinds of like offensive names and stuff like that, and like cyberbully me because she still had my phone number at the time. Because I had my flip phone at the time, had her phone number and everything. And yeah, I was harassed for I'd say like 3 more months after that. And then it wasn't before my 12th. It wasn't before my 12th birthday. I remember telling my mom, like, I don't want to go to school anymore. Like, I'm tired of the harassment. Like, I've had enough, you know. And then my mom's like, okay. Like, if that's what you truly need, then we'll get you out of there. And I was like, okay, thank you. And I remember one of my last days of school. It was like early February of that year, in 2017. My mom dropped me off at my dad's work, the mechanic shop, and my dad. I remember my dad. I'm sure he knew what was going on because I think he was trying to cheer me up a little bit, because he always like tease me and like kind of like give me crap and stuff like that. And I remember I was kind of like walking around the shop looking at the cars, and he walks by and he like, what you doing, slacker? Get to work. I was like, well, Dad, you gotta teach me first, you know, like you gotta show me first, like how to do all this stuff, you know, because I was like, you know, I was a kid, you know, like I didn't know anything about mechanic stuff. And I think he actually did go out of his way to like teach me something. He it was something, I think it was like how to stop an oil leak. He put like a little like bowl tray underneath where the oil's leaking, and then you collect all the oil on that, and then like once it's done leaking, you dump it. I think that's how that works. Mechanics, let me know if that's accurate or not. But that's all that I remember my dad ever teaching me, is how to stop an oil leak. Sorry, I can't speak right now. But yeah, that's another memory that I think of with my dad a lot. You know, my dad was awesome. Just hearing all the stories about my dad and how he has impacted so many other people, not only within my family, but friends too, and gone for as long as they have. And I respect them both too much, way too much, because I feel like I can never live on that kind of pedestal, nor do I want to, because I respect my dad way too much. I can never be half the man he was. He was awesome, and I'm so grateful that I was able to have a dad like him, because unfortunately in this day and age, a lot of people aren't blessed with that kind of thing. People either grow up with a shitty father or no father at all, you know. So I kind of keep that in consideration too. But it was a good year. I remember we went on a family cruise that spring, you know. I was finally out of that toxic school, you know. I was being homeschooled for the rest of that year, and I was happy with that. And then, shortly after that, my brother graduated high school. I remember that, and then that summer was fun, and then that following fall was, you know, getting into 6th grade at a different school. And at that point in time, I ended up meeting another girl. From this way forward, you guys are going to hear a lot of girl stories, so prepare yourselves because a lot of them are kind of humiliating. But at one of those points, I met another girl. Hold on. But at one of those points, I met another girl that I liked. At first, and the way I met her was so weird too. I remember because I remember we were in class, and I would kind of like look across the room, like I'm like, oh, like she's like kind of pretty, you know, like she's kind of attractive. You know, me being 12 years old and fucking, you know, like thinking I know what a pretty girl looks like, you know. Not thinking anything of it, you know, but like I remember like that went through my head, you know. And then for some reason we had to be put in groups, and she just happened to be part of the group that I was supposed to be involved in. So I was like, oh no, you know, like it felt kind of intimidating. And like these girls, and it was mostly a group of girls I was with, including her, and they're like gossiping, being like, oh, like does anyone have a crush? And I went in this room, yada yada, and then she was quiet, you know, and they were all kind of like going by every guy in the class, and like she like was like saying no to each one of them, and then until it was down to me, one of the other girls like looked at me, and then they're like him, and then she like nodded her head, and then her jaw dropped, and she was looking at me, and then I was like, wait, what? Like you like me? Like that's funny because I like you too, but you like me? Like what the fuck, you know? So I remember shortly after that, me and her like started talking because like it was obvious that we liked each other, you know. And then we started dating, and it was like this cute little thing. And I remember my mom was putting together a barbecue birthday party because it was my mom's birthday. And I asked if I could invite this girl, you know. And at some point in time in that month, my parents said yes, and she was able to come. And so the day comes, and I'm having a few of my buddies, or have my buddy Braylon over. I don't know if you guys remember Braylon, but Braylon, if you're watching this, if not, I kind of doubt it because, you know, I feel like he's got his own life to deal with. But Braylon, if you guys remember Braylon, he was part of the podcast for a short amount of time back in 2022 when I lived in Florida. So, but that's what I'm talking about. Hope you're doing well, dude. But yeah, I remember he was there, and she got there. She just arrived. Her mom was dropping her off. And I remember being nervous because I was like, oh my god, this is my first time having a girl at my house, you know? But through this too, I remember like my mom being very, very fucking paranoid. Like, I'm not even exactly when I said it because she would tell me like, your door has to stay open, no freaky business, you know? Like my mom was like I was like, okay, you know, and of course, like, I was at that age, like, hormones and whatnot, so I kind of was, like, curious about, like, what is that kind of stuff, you know? But I knew it wasn't going to happen because I was just too afraid of getting in trouble. But she wasn't. She was all about it. I shouldn't put that in there, but I'm trying to add more to the story that you guys know. I remember we're all hanging out in my room with Braylon. Poor Braylon. Braylon was third reeling hard with this. But I remember at one point we were sitting down. I was sitting down on my bed, and she decided to move her body, her head, to lay on my lap. And she was just kind of laying there, and I kind of had like my hand over her. If this is too many details, let me know. I apologize in advance. But we were all talking. And I remember it got quiet, and this is another core memory I have of my dad. because I hear footsteps, you know, like I hear his footsteps coming to the hallway. I was like, oh shit, you know, like we're not doing anything weird, you know. And the doors are wide open too, so like all he had to do was like walk in there. And the funny thing is that my dad doesn't even make a step into the room. He leans. He leans and he looks. First, he leans in the doorway, looks at me, looks at her, looks back at me, and has like this shit-eating grin on his face and walks out. Didn't even say a word. My dad didn't even say the word. Like, the room was silent in that moment when that happened. And I just remember, like, even at that point in time, I was like, that's a proud dad moment right there. That is a proud dad moment. And that's just a core memory that I'll just have forever, because, like, for someone who always thought, like, my dad didn't really, like, love me or anything, and to see that happen, I was like, that was definitely a proud dad moment. And I don't know now, but Dad, I don't have really anything going on with girls right now, which I'm sure he understands, but I'm not the cool kid I was back then. I'm a lot different now, because of all the things that has happened. But, you know, I'm not going to try to let that define my future, define who I am, you know, because of, like I said, like, I'm burying it all in this video. Not saying that, like, I'm gonna find ways to deal with it, but this is the last time I'm really gonna address everything that I address in this video. But then, it wasn't until my dad, later that fall, later in that year, like 2 months later, it wasn't until then that my dad was leaving for a hunting trip, because, you know, like for years it was always a tradition that, like, every year around November my dad would go on a hunting trip with, like, family and whatnot, and he'll come back with, like, all kinds of cool stuff and whatnot. But I specifically remember it being November 3rd of 2017, and my dad was it was a Friday morning, because I remember it, because I had to go to school, and me and my sister were getting ready for school, because me and her were going to the same school, and, like, our school was like 2 blocks away from the house, so we just had to walk. And my dad was getting ready to leave for hunting season, and I remember we left around the same time, because, you know, and come to find out, this was to become the very last moment I had with my dad. He was getting ready to leave, and he called me and Ann over to say goodbye, and we both hugged my dad, and what I take as a sign as the universe letting my dad say his last goodbyes is something that my dad didn't really do a lot. And he kissed me and my sister on the head. Which that was something that I remember that he rarely did, at least with me, you know. But I remember he kissed me on my head, to say, like, goodbye and stuff, because, like, he was going to be gone for at least a week or 2 weeks, or I can't remember what the original time frame was that he was going to be gone before he was going to be back in time for Thanksgiving. Wasn't thinking much of it, and then 5 days go by, and I just remember, like, one of the days after school, singing it in my head, like, Mom was kind of stressed out while Dad was gone, and I just remember saying in my head, like, you know, I hope Dad's okay. Like, I know he had his situation 3 years ago where he got sick, but, like, I hope my dad's okay. And I think it was like a day or two later, I get home from school, no one's home, and first thing I get into is homework. I was a band kid at this point, so I had band homework and all that shit. So I remember doing band homework, and Mom comes home, and she's like, hey, like, you know, we're gonna do something different tonight. We're gonna go out to Village Inn and have dinner. And I was like, oh hell yeah, I love Village Inn. And it was like a treat or whatever. So it was me, my sister Rhiannon, my brother Zach, my mom, and my brother's best friend at the time. That was a roommate with us. The 5 of us went and had dinner at Village Inn. And so we get to Village Inn. If you guys don't know Village Inn, it's like IHOP. It's like a phenomenal breakfast place. If you have it in your area, you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, it's like IHOP. It's like one of those breakfast places. But we get there, we sit down, and maybe not even 5 to 10 minutes go by, because I remember we didn't even have a chance to eat yet. My mom gets a phone call from my Uncle Ryan, because, mind you, this was my Uncle Ryan's first time going hunting with my dad and with the guys. Sorry. And out of nowhere, the table just gets really quiet, and then Mom just starts bawling. Like, Mom looks devastated. She just starts crying her eyes out. And then that's when I knew something was definitely wrong with Dad. And I remember my sister chimed in, like, is Dad okay? And then as my mom's crying, my mom goes, like, she's like nodding her head no, and like, I'm scared, we're all scared, like, we're all like, just like is like, what's going on with Dad, you know? At least that's how it was with me, how I felt in that moment. And then I think, like, Rhiannon, like, kept, like, asking Mom, because Mom wasn't responsive because she was crying so much. And then that's when my mom utters the 2 words that stick with me even today, saying, while she's crying, saying, he's gone. And I didn't get the whole story till a couple of years after it, but I guess what happened was, from like the surgeries and stuff my dad had a pacemaker. So with like a collarbone in his heart, so yeah, my dad had a pacemaker. And I guess my dad was pulling his elk, and mind you, elk are like huge animals, like they weigh a lot and whatnot. So he was going to pull his elk, and I think when he pulled his elk, the pacemaker went. And as soon as the pacemaker disconnected, it was like a flip of a switch. My dad immediately collapsed, and he wasn't there. Only for my uncle to find him like that and tried to get him to be okay and get the ambulance and stuff like that, up in the middle of nowhere, mind you. And from everyone that I told that aspect with it, each of them said, like, yeah, that's what happened. And I remember in the moment finding out that my dad passed away. First, it was mainly shock and fear before sadness. Like, I remember, like, I was afraid for a long time because when you're that young and a parent dies, it feels like the end of the world, which that's what it felt like for me. Like, I didn't know how I was going to go forward. I didn't know what my family was going to do. I didn't know what my mom was going to do. I just remember it all being scary and very unknown-like. And then I remember over a week later, it was my dad's funeral. And, open casket, everything. And, that was hard, seeing my own dad. My grandpa was one thing, my dad, it was really hard. Sorry, I'm getting tired. It was really hard. I remember as everyone else was telling the stories, my dad, doing the service. I was getting towards the part where, like, we would say our last goodbyes, and we were going to close the casket and take it to the funeral car where they take the casket to where it's going to get buried. But my dad didn't get buried; he got cremated. I remember it was getting close to that time that, like, they were going to take my dad, to the back. And I remember before that, I was kind of looking at my dad's casket. I was looking at my dad from a distance, like way back from where the seats were. And I was just looking, and I was like fighting with myself, like, I'm too afraid to go up there by myself and say my goodbyes, like, because I'm pretty sure my mom was like sitting down and she was crying and she was having friends and over there kind of comforting her. I remember I looked over and was just like, I can't do it. Like, I can't go up there and talk to my dad one-on-one one last time, even though he'll be unresponsive. I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was like him, my grandpa, or if it was any kind of spiritual thing that happened with this, but somehow I gained the bravery of walking up to my dad's casket by myself, and I remember just looking at my dad. I don't even think I said anything. I just looked at my dad one last time, seeing just how at peace he was, and knowing that my dad wasn't there. But I think what led me to going up to see my dad one last time is I was thinking of the time when I saw my grandpa for the last time, and how my dad went up with me. That's what I was thinking of in that moment, even though this time I was looking at my dad in his casket by myself. I went up by myself and saw him. And that was not easy, but I feel like I was thinking about one of those moments I had with my dad when he walked up with me with my grandpa. It was kind of the same scenario, except my dad this time and me alone. I think I was thinking about that really helped push me to do that, because I knew I would regret it if I didn't. Yeah, and then we had the celebration of life and whatnot, and then it was eventually time to move on with our lives, and then that's when things really got dark. So shortly after Dad passed, and after the holidays and stuff happened, without him, everything was still fresh, so I don't think all of us really had time to just really process his passing. Wasn't until we got into 2018, things got kind of dark, and my mom turned to alcohol for a while, and in spring of 2018, my brother moved out. My brother and his roommate moved out of the house and got a place shortly 6 months after Dad passed. So this was in May of 2018. my brother moved out, and it was just me, my sister, and my mom. And at this point, my sister was really busy with high school, and I just finished my 6th grade year, heading into my 7th grade year. So all the time, it was just me and mom home, because my sister was either out with like friends, or it was busy with high school, because she did a lot of like high school projects and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember my mom turning to alcohol, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. To the point when I was the only one home, I was the only target. That was hard as a 13 and 14-year-old. And eventually the girl that I was dating, we broke up after, because everything was just too much. With the passing of dad and whatnot, so me and her eventually broke up, and we didn't talk for a long time. So I was kind of grieving both of those things, you know, my dad and the relationship, regretting pushing her away and stuff like that. And then I remember I got very, very depressed, to the point that I attempted to unalive myself. This was April of 2019. I was 14, and even though I would have been unsuccessful either way, I still feel like the thought behind the action is what really still makes it heavy. I tried to drown myself in my bathtub. The idea behind it was because I used bath time to kind of like cope with stuff, because I enjoyed bath time and stuff like that. I enjoyed being in the water and whatnot. But except for one night when no one was home, I thought I was gonna take a bath, but fill the bathtub all the way up to the rim, and make sure it was really hot water to the point that my body would get so fatigued that I wouldn't be able to get out. So at one point, as I was in there, everyone else started to get very fatigued, and mind you, around this time, like, I'd practice how long I would hold my breath for underwater and stuff. That was kind of like a little thing I did for a while. But except this time, I would sink my head on the very bottom of the bathtub to the point where my head would hit the bottom, and I would make sure my head would stay there. Like, I'd force my head down there, you know. And first, I would hold my breath, and then eventually, at the point to where my chest started to hurt and feel tight because I couldn't hold my breath any longer. But I kept myself held there. And I was like fighting it, like to the point like I was waiting until like it would stop hurting, and eventually I would have drowned. But what happened next was something that I swear to you guys that I can't make up. But as it was happening, I had my eyes closed, and you guys know how like towards the light with your eyes are closed, you can still see like the light through your eyes. It looks pink because your skin, you know, is like covering whatever. But then maybe it was because I was starting to get fatigued and starting to pass out or something. But you know, I was seeing things, I was seeing spots or whatever. But I swear to you, I saw my dad's silhouette, like taking up what the light was there. It was his silhouette. And it wasn't even words like that I heard, but it was just like in my head that he said exactly this: how would your friends and family feel if they lose you after they just lost me? Those were the exact words that imprinted in my brain. And to this day, I believe my dad was with me in that very moment. Talking about this, I'm just like kind of like disassociated because even though like consciously I know I'm talking about all this shit, but like dissociating because I don't feel like I'm actually here, even though I know I'm here, but I don't feel like I'm here, which is probably the reason why I don't feel emotional like I feel like I would be. Maybe it's because I'm revisiting all this shit, but editing this later is gonna be so uncomfortable. Not looking forward to that. But those words saved me. At this point, I was like struggling with breath, so I quickly kind of like went down. I pulled the drain, and as I pulled the drain, I forced my head out. That way, I could at least get air. And once like it's like the water was draining out of the bathtub, I remember I just laid there crying because I realized how much I was missing my dad and how much life just felt like shit at that point in time. And then a month later was when this channel was born, May of 2019. And so yeah, at this point I already created the channel, and I made a decision that like I was leaving my school and I was going to be going to online school. That way I could focus on YouTube, because YouTube was something I always wanted to do, you know, but except at that point I was doing vlogs and doing the trendy stuff because I wanted to get big immediately, and those videos weren't working, and I was always kind of shoving cameras in people's faces whenever my sister had her friends over because I didn't really have much friends. But this is when Hunter really came in clutch for me. A little bit of a backstory. I met Hunter shortly after my dad passed because his stepdad passed 4 days after my dad did, and his mom and my mom were really close friends at the time, so they thought they would bring me and Hunter together, and me and Hunter are still buds to this very day, obviously. But it was specifically around this time where like I can't thank Hunter enough because he helped me through a lot, even if we were constantly making videos, even though if like most of the videos didn't even succeed, didn't get much recognition. He was always there with me, and I felt like I remember I felt at one point that he was going to get tired of me and leave, and that has yet to happen even now. So Hunter, brother, if you're watching this, I fucking love you because you saved my life in a time when I felt like nothing mattered. In times when I felt like nothing mattered, because there's been more than just that one time. I know you know that. But you truly helped me through all those times. So, to the bottom of my heart, Hunter, brother, thank you. And I love you so much. Anyways, so there's that, and then, fast forward, things were kind of same. You know, I was going through YouTube, and then COVID happened in 2020, and then I was like, you know, like very like, you know, still like trying to focus on the YouTube thing, focus on YouTube, because YouTube was really all I had at the time. Still is the only thing I have now, you know. And so I kept making videos, and I was getting recognition, and then I remember my first 100 subscribers, and I was very happy about that. And I gained my first 100 subscribers, I believe it was like 2021, so I was like 16, so I was already in high school, I was doing online school, you know, like things were starting to turn up from that point. And heading into 2022, I remember I turned 17, and that's when I had like the friend group with Hunter and like all the other guys and Zach, because I knew Zach in middle school, but me and him weren't really close until like my dad passed, and then like he was starting to be a lot nicer to me because me and him kind of butt heads in middle school, and then me and him were kind of off and on until high school. In high school, he met Hunter, and me and him, Hunter, would hang out, and we started to become a lot more close. And so we had the friend group with the guys, and again, like this was around the point that like things felt like they were really turning up, because I was feeling happier because YouTube was going well. I have my support system of my friend group and family, and then but that's when things were only felt good for only so long, because at that point my mom broke the news that like her alcoholism wasn't getting any better, and she came to the conclusion that moving states was what she wanted, and that I had to go with her to Florida, moving to Florida. And I remember telling her that like, I do not want to do that. I'm happy where I'm at. Things are finally turning around for me, and I don't want it to go downhill again. Like, I remember I kept telling her that, like, me and her fought over it a lot for a long time. And then she's like, I don't care, we're sticking with this, you know. We're doing this, whether you like it or not. And I remember being very upset with my mom for a long time with that, because like we would be verbally at each other's throats, like it was bad. And then I remember during that time I was talking to this girl that I was really serious about, because this was at the point where I was finally ready to put myself out there again. I was like, I'm older now, like maybe with me being older, it'll be a lot, the dating, you know, world will be a lot different now. Remember I met this girl, and me and her were talking a lot, we got really close. I had like really strong feelings, and I remember I kind of like went to her about it, and and she was saying like, well, it won't be that, we'll make it work out, you know, like it'll be like Florida will be okay for you, I think we'll still be talking, like trying to calm me down. And normally something like that would calm me down, but I was so upset that it didn't calm me down, and I was more upset that she was supporting the fact of me moving to Florida instead of trying to be on my side against it. So that upset me, and I raised my voice at her, and she didn't talk to me for a while after that. And then, so I'm upset because things are falling apart with me and her, and we're just getting closer and closer to like the day coming where I'm gonna be living in Florida, and I'm just dreading the days as they're going by. Like I'm just dreading it. And wasn't until eventually that like someone from middle school reached out to me that I didn't talk to for years, and it was someone I dated in middle school. And I remember I stopped talking to her after my dad passed, and this was our first time talking again since then. And we had unfinished business, and when she realized it was me, you know, like once I realized it was her that reached out to me, because she reached out to me through social media, and once I realized it was her, I was like, oh my god, like I'm so sorry for like leaving you and stuff like this. I regret it to this very day. And that's when, you know, those feelings got back intact because of that unfinished business. And then it wasn't until one day that summer of 2022 that I wanted to be open and honest with her that I still had feelings for the girl previously, and that upset her. She felt very heartbroken, and I felt terrible. I felt, even though me and her weren't together yet at the time, I felt so guilty, because I was like, the one person that has cared for me through everything since the beginning, I'm about to fuck it all up. And I'm gonna lose everything. I'm gonna lose my friends because of Florida, and I'm gonna have nothing. And I didn't want to live with that. So I remember one night in the summer, during the summer of 2022, and this is when we had like the podcast going and stuff too. So we were like, again, like we were like trying to like do everything I could to like make sure that like Florida wasn't consuming my mind, you know. But then one night, none of it was working. I remember I was talking to her, just feeling so bad, and she was hurting too because she felt so rejected and all that kind of stuff. And mind you, like this was after we were intimate to each other and whatnot, so it already felt heartbroken. And so I felt so mad at myself and so guilty, and like the thought of moving to Florida and losing everything because of this mistake that I made, I couldn't live with that. So I remember I was making some pretty concerning comments about unaliving myself. I didn't that night, but I was making comments about it to her. And I remember her like being very concerned that like, I will call the police to your house right now, please don't do anything to yourself. And it wasn't until eventually I had fallen asleep, and next thing I know, I wake up and I was on the couch in the basement, and I wake up and Stacy's there, one of our neighbors, and she's sitting there with me on the couch. Like she kind of like woke me up, like kind of panicked, and so I woke up, you know. And one of the first things she told me was she extended her phone out to me and was like, "Talk to your mom right now." And I pulled her phone up to my ear, and all I hear is my mom crying. And mind you, this is the first time I heard my mom cry like this since the passing of my dad. And it wasn't until like I was hearing my mom cry like she was, because mind you, when this was happening, she was already in Florida picking the house, so she wasn't anywhere in Colorado at all, which was probably a big reason why like I was planning on doing it again anyway. But like I heard my mom crying on the phone, that I realized what the fuck I had done, and I felt so guilty because I was like, oh my god, I just made everyone think that I killed myself, or I unalived myself, sorry. And I felt so guilty for that, because I remember a close friend of mine at the time, and my sister and his sister, they went to the Renaissance Festival that morning, and once they heard about the news about me, they turned around and went back for the house, because I was alone that night. Probably, you know, maybe an indicator on why I wanted to. And I remember they came down the stairs, and I just started crying because I felt so guilty. And they hugged me and whatnot, and then Hunter made it to the house, and he came downstairs, and then I started crying even more, because I was like, God damn it, Hunter's here too, you know. And then that day they spent the whole day with me because they didn't want me to do anything stupid. And during that day, we made videos together, and those videos still exist today on the channel. And then it wasn't. And then I remember shortly after that, my mom didn't want me to be home by myself. I wasn't allowed to be home by myself. Valid reasoning why. So I stayed with my brother and his now fiance at their place for a while. And I made a couple videos while I was there too, and I'm pretty sure those were more so talking videos. I remember I finally heard back from her, the girl I was talking to, and I guess she ended up going to a psych ward or a mental hospital for a few days because she was thinking of herself too or whatever. And I remember when I finally heard back from her, I felt so relieved to know that she was okay because I was not about to live with the fact of her being gone. And come to find out when we were talking, the night that she thought I unalived myself, she called the cops to my house, and that's how they got in contact with Stacy and my mom and stuff like that. So that's how that came about, and I just remember just being so devastated because I was like, someone cares for me enough to go out of their way and call the police to do a wellness check on me. And that was so devastating to me because I was like, I always felt like no one would ever care for me enough to do that for me, just to make sure that I'm okay. And 3 years later, that still sticks with me because I still have a hard time seeing why people love me and stuff like that. I'll be honest about that. Yeah. Fast forward, me and her end up getting together right before I moved to Florida. And things were happy for a while. Things felt happy for a while. And things were fine turning out, even though that I accepted the fact that I'm going to Florida at this point. And I remember telling her that, like, me and you are gonna make this work. Like, I know it's gonna be a long distance and whatnot, but like, me and you are gonna make this work. And she was all for it. She was like, okay, you know. And then it wasn't until one of the all of us were hanging out, including her, like the guys and her. She was there at the house. That was one of the last days we were hanging out there before, we couldn't only be at the house so much because they were doing like the, people coming to see the house and stuff like that. So we weren't really allowed to do much at this point, but with the house, because it was being put up for sale and stuff. One of the very last times we were hanging out at the house was when this video was recorded. I think about that video a lot. Knowing that like things finally felt okay again, and because that was really the one video before the rest of the disaster. So fast forward fall of 2022, we finally moved into the Florida house, and everything. And me and my girlfriend at the time were talking one day, and I remember telling her that, like, you know, what I did to you, saying that I still had feelings with that other girl, it still doesn't sit right with me, and I feel like we need to be even. Those words that I said right there are now the biggest regret of my life, and I will follow forward with why that is. She didn't agree with it, but I told her, anything you feel is right to get revenge on me, please do it. And she took that as in sleeping with somebody else. And when she told me that's how she took it as, in that moment I did not agree with it. But my dumbass, again, said, if that's what you feel is right, then go for it. This is when things went down an even deeper, darker route. Because this wasn't a one-time thing. This was a thing that went on for months while I was in Florida. And so eventually the individual she decided to sleep with was someone she already had past feelings for, that she was still friends with, that I didn't know about until this very moment. And he agreed with it, and he knew the whole thing about me, you know, bringing that up, being even and stuff like that. And so I remember when the first time it happened, I told her to let me know. And I remember I cried a lot, but then again I told myself that I deserve it, and then I fell down an even deeper route where I told myself I deserved it, and in a twisted way I tried to convince myself to like it. I know that sounds very sick. That is very sick. But I was also so fucked up in the head at this point. Like, I was so fucked up in the head with all the stuff that was going on to this very point. And it went on for months. It went on for, I'd say, probably 6 months or longer. And it got to the point that each time it happened, while she was here in Colorado and I was in Florida, I would self-harm myself, and I did that for a while. And then it wasn't until heading into 2023, I got to the point that I was like, you know what, I'm done, I'm tired. So this was my second attempt to unalighting myself, and this time again probably wouldn't have been successful either way, considering what I took. But again, like I mentioned earlier, I still think the thought behind it still makes it real. I took all kinds of pills. To be specific, I took Advil. I was really afraid of like my mom like finding out, so I was very like quiet about it. She wasn't home, So I remember I downed an entire small bottle of Advil and a half of another bottle. So I did 1.5 because I didn't want all of it to be gone, because I didn't want Mom to be like, wait, what happened to all the Advil, you know? So even when I was suicidal, I still cared of what people would think of it. So one day when I was home alone, I downed all kinds of pills, and I remember being probably one of the worst pains in my entire life, because it really felt like someone was like tearing open my stomach from the inside out, and I was nauseous, or like I was gonna throw up. I was trying to catch my breath, like I was heavy breathing, you know. And I remember saying to myself in my head, like, this is it, it's happening. But holy shit, this hurts. And I was pacing around the house with my hand on my gut and just like heavy breathing because of how much it hurt. And I kind of got this feeling that my dad was disappointed this second time around of me trying to take my own life, because I felt him in my ear again. And he was saying, he kept it short. He said, "It's not your time yet." I believe he said that. I believe he said, "It's not your time yet." Like, and it was like repeat. Like each breath I would take would be like, "It's not your time yet. It's not your time yet. It's not your time yet." Like it would repeat itself for so long, until eventually I fell asleep on my bed when I thought I was gonna pass on. And it wasn't until I woke up that night, I was like, damn it. Like, remember I woke up and I was just, I was upset that I didn't work. So I was like, okay, whatever. I took a bath to kind of like wind myself down, and my stomach still felt weird, you know, considering what I just did, you know. And, I remember I told my girlfriend what I did, and she was upset by it. But then I was like, can you blame me? Like, what you've been doing to me? Like, what you've been doing to me these last 6 months, and you're upset with me with what I did because I was in so much emotional pain? And, I remember my mom eventually found out, and she was also very upset, and then she asked me if I wanted to die. And I didn't answer that because my answer was still yes, and I know that she did not want to hear that. So, and then fast forward, I told my girlfriend, I was like, you know what, I want my consent back, can you please stop hooking up with him? And that's when I thought, you know, that things was going to be okay, that like, me and her were finally, because I wanted me and her to kind of build a healthier relationship and put all of this behind us and just move on. And she agreed with it, and I was like, okay. And that's what at this moment was like, okay, like I'm fine, like I can finally chill, you know, I can be okay again, even though I don't feel like it right now. Fast forward. A month later, it was my 18th birthday, and that morning, my girlfriend was saying that she was going to meet with the guy for coffee, because I guess that was always a routine with them, which I didn't know until this point on. And I told her, I was like, I trust you, but please tell me anything that happens, even the stuff, if you did stuff, you know. And she was like, okay. And fast forward, she wasn't responding to her phone, and that's when I knew she was with him. And I could not stay in the house. I went for a walk because my anxiety was up. Like, something could be happening right now. That's why she's not answering her phone. Yada yada. And then eventually she answered her phone, and I was like, how did it go? Like, what happened, whatnot? Did anything else happen? And she was like, no. I was like, you sure? Like, yeah, we only talked, and, you know, and that was it. And I was like, okay. Later that night, I got the worst nerve in my stomach, in my gut, that I was like, I don't trust her. I need to find out for myself if she's telling the truth. And that's one of the times where I wish I didn't know the truth, but I did, because I found out she was lying to me, because I logged into her Snapchat account. If you're ever in relationships, don't do this, because if you have any of your partner's information of anything, I mean anything at all, that just shows that there's a lack of trust in your relationship, and you gotta build that shit, because this isn't the way to go. Don't do what I did. Learn from my mistakes, please, because this almost made me want to unalive myself again. It almost put me over again. What happened next? I found a photo of her upper chest with marks, if you guys know what I mean. I remember once I saw that, I put my phone down and I just started bawling. And then, mind you, it was like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning in Florida. And I remember being so upset. I was like, I'm fucking calling her. Like, I know she's asleep, but I'm calling her. I don't care if it wakes her up. So I call her, and she hears me sobbing, and she's wondering what's going on. And I finally told her that I found out, and she was very devastated. She was very quiet about it. I could tell that she felt a lot of guilt, not shame, because I could just tell. And I remember being angry about it for a while and sad about it for a while, and it almost put me over again. But that following morning, without any food, without any sleep, I got this tattoo. I got this tattoo right here. That's when I got this tattoo done. That's why whenever I look at this tattoo, I think about the things that had happened. And I will say, if you ever, please don't ever go get a tattoo with no sleep and no food, because this may be my best looking tattoo in my opinion that I have, but that shit was hell to sit through. Not only because of the emotional pain, but the physical pain and the lack of sleep. It sucked, but look how cool it looks. Like, look at that. Look how cool it looks. But that's the story behind this tattoo. So, fast forward, things went darker, to the point that whenever her and the guy would hang out, the guy would get a hold of her phone and text me, because I would still be texting her while they hang out. And we got in a really bad fight over the phone, and it was just very ugly, and we were threatening each other, and it was just really bad. 2 weeks go by. Same scenario. They're hanging out again, and I told her, like, hey, like, I'll let you two hang out. Please don't text me until you're done, because I don't want anything like last time to happen. And then she still kept texting me while they were hanging out. She still kept texting me. And then wasn't until I just decided to make the action that, like, okay, the next time she texts me, I'm not going to respond until I know that they're, done hanging out. But then I get a follow-up message. It was him. with her name and everything, her phone number and everything. It was a follow-up message of her, but it was of the guy saying, "Please stop texting her and let her be happy for a while." I got defensive, and I started talking back to him, and I was like, "Hey, like, I'm letting her talk to me. I'm not trying to talk to her because you guys are hanging out." And she's the one replying to me, stuff like that. And then he started threatening that, like, oh, that, like, you know, like, you're, like, a piece of shit to her. Like, I would treat her so much better. She's happy with me, not you. You know, basically threatening me and, like, trying to start a fight with me. I gave in to that, and I got very mad, and I got to the point that I was like, "You're lucky I'm in Florida right now, because if I was in Colorado, I would try to find you," basically. And there's not really much I can say about that because I'm not trying to get canceled on my return to YouTube, but you guys could get the gist. And I just remember feeling so helpless because she's there with him and I'm in Florida alone. I was alone for a long, long, long time. And then it wasn't until I had my breaking point that I addressed to her that I think we should break up. And we did. We broke up. But it wasn't until later that I knew that's what he wanted. Because come to find out, a month or two later, they got together. And I was blocked on everything. I was devastated. I was the most heartbroken I've ever been in my entire life. I felt betrayed beyond, and it was by far the worst heartbreak I've ever felt, because that was reality hitting me in the face, that it was never going to work out at that point. And I remember, like, I created different accounts just to contact her, which is also very toxic, but I needed a reason why she did this to me. Like, I needed to know why she did this. And I eventually got my answer, and I'll leave that private. It wasn't until the summer of 2023 when I was trying to get more clarification so that I could move on. And me and her didn't really talk to each other for like a month during this time. So when she heard back from me, she's like, her mood was very different, and she was like, "I got nothing to prove to you, I got nothing to say to you, I'm done, I'm moving on." Basically avoiding my need for clarification to move on, you know, to be able to let go and move on, you know. And I wanted to meet in person. She was very against that, didn't want to do that. And she's like, "I don't know what would do if I saw you in person again," you know. And so we got in a bad fight. She mentioned my family and stuff, so I mentioned her family and stuff, and she started calling me pathetic, body shaming me, threatening my family, threatening me, and it was just very bad. And I gave in to that. I was threatening her and stuff like that. Again, very, very bad, to the point that her friends got involved, he got involved, and me and the guys got involved. It was very bad. And then nothing actually physically happened. Nothing ever physically happened. It was just all verbally over the fucking phones. And then it wasn't until shortly later me and her apologized to each other, and we said the last things we wanted to say to each other. And she said, "You know, after this, I'm gonna have to block you again." And I said, I don't agree with that, but I know it's gonna happen anyway." And then it happened one day, and we never talked again since. and it's been over 2 years now, 2.5 years now. And I remember after all that, I was hoeing around. I will say that. I was a little bit of a hoe there for a little bit. I was talking to a lot of different girls at different times, and a lot of them ended up like feeling romantically connected with me the same way for them. And then until about months later, I met this one girl that I just fell head over heels for. This was beginning of 2024. I met this girl, and things were going so incredibly well. Like, she was the prettiest girl I ever met, and like me and her, like, things were going really, really well. And I won't say too much about this one because some of the things with this one is still kind of present day, still kind of present day. So I won't put too much detail into this one, but let's just say that, like, for the first time in a long time, the reason I fell so hard for this girl in particular is because she made me feel needed and valued in a way that, like, I felt useful in a good way. That, like, whenever she needed something, I was there. Whenever, like, she made me feel like I was important, which I never felt like ever in a relationship previous, but we never got together. So, yeah, we never got together. And then it wasn't until fast forward a year later, after knowing this girl for a while, she has become very distant, very just very, like, unresponsive, and I was getting frustrated with that. And at this point, you know, I just turned 20, so this was earlier this year. And at this point, like, based off of how she was acting, it was how I was acting. And then I remember at the beginning of this year, I was wanting to step away from YouTube because I was just very mentally drained. I felt very alone, and that's when I finally addressed to you guys earlier this year that I was stepping away from YouTube. And as I talk about that for a moment, I'm going to read the comments from that specific video, because now that I took the time to look back at them, I really feel the love, and I'm just gonna read the comments that you guys left, because they're just so heartwarming. But this is the first one. I apologize. I'm not gonna read the names of who said them, but if you know that you're the one that said the comment, you know who you are. But here's the first one. Jacob. Therapy will help if you find the right therapist and if you want to get help. Mind you, this is when I was finally getting into therapy, because Hunter talked me into it and stuff like that. It sounds like therapy will help you a lot, so please invest yourself in every step. Don't feel forced. Do it because you realize you have issues that are unresolved, and because you really want to figure some important things out about yourself. Don't worry about YouTube. It will still be here when you're ready. You deserve to be happy and feel grounded. It will make your outlook on life completely different. You'll be able to love yourself and to truly love others. Your new outlook will show up in everything you do, and you will flourish in your endeavors and relationships. You're so young. Now is the perfect time to change the path you're on. I'm so proud of you for taking this step. I wish you all the best life has to offer. I will be praying for you, kid. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you get back. Hugs. Next one. Jacob. Your mental health and self-health are the most important things. Please invest your time and efforts. You are worthy and worth it. Next one, Jacob. You're being very brave. Good job advocating for yourself. My heart breaks for you. I, among many people out there, totally understand. Pretty much everyone needs therapy, honestly. Glad you are doing this for yourself, and may God go with you, and may you find peace and find yourself. Getting help is totally uncomfortable and totally worth it. And good on you, man. And I'll be praying for you. I'll be praying you find what you need for wholeness. And then he said, and hey. And then the other follow-up comment with that one and said, and hey, whatever the case, we will see you back here if you're meant to be back on YouTube. We will still be here. And this was another one from that video. Jacob, please believe in yourself. I've been where you are right now. There is hope. Yes, it is scary to work on yourself, but you are worth it. If you put all your effort into making changes for yourself and not for anyone else, you will grow as a person and eventually become your own best friend. Please take care and come back to us. I want you to know that I have honestly enjoyed your content and look forward to meeting the you that you will be. My thoughts will be with you. I don't think you guys realize the impact that you guys make. Because reading back at those comments now and realizing the impact that I've made on you guys, either if it was through funny videos or very emotionally deep videos, it really shows the hard work that I put into this. And that it has paid off, because the community that we have here, the fact that I have had hardly lost any subscribers at all at the beginning of the year to now, means a lot to me, because I'm so used to, in every aspect of my life, things leaving me and getting bored of me, but almost through a whole year, you guys have had stuck with me. And for that, I can never repay you guys. I can never thank you guys enough, because that, it doesn't feel genuine, because like, I feel like if it was genuine, I'd be emotional right now, but like, honestly, like, I've disassociated so much through this, bring up old memories, and like I have been. It's been a lot. And, I don't think you guys realize the impact that you guys have. And follow up on how my life has been, you know, away from YouTube. Me and that girl eventually stopped talking, and it really helped open my eyes up on a lot of things, because I ended up raising my voice at her one day, and she didn't like that. And it was my fault. It was genuinely my fault. I know that now. And then it definitely opened my eyes up to some things. And I think it wasn't until this summer I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, I felt myself falling into the person that I was, you know, the toxic version of myself. And then I looked back at that, looked at me, and I was like, what am I becoming? And then I was like, I can't settle for that. So then, even though it hurt every day, I would go to work. I would do my work day, and I would come back home, go to work, go back home, go to work, go back home. Do that for, pretty much that was my year. And I've invested a lot of time and money into better equipment that you guys see here right now. Because I know that, like, my entire plan this year was to eventually to come back to YouTube, and here I am at the end of 2025. And 2025 for me has honestly been such an unforgiving year. It's been lonely. It's been so much. It's been unforgiving. but it's helped open my eyes so much. So that's my life story, guys. That's it. One thing I will mention as we close this out, one thing that I really learned about myself to the core of my being through therapy, which I'm still doing now. I've been doing it weekly for ever since like the spring. So one thing I learned about myself is that I mentioned how I was a mama's boy pretty much my entire life, and then so I always clenched on my mom for validation. For me to feel worthy, I've always went to my mom. So I always needed that female love, I guess, from someone of the opposite sex, basically. Like, I use that as in, like, I need to be accepted by a female and loved by a female in order for me to feel like I belong, like I'm important. And so when my mom turned to alcohol, that kind of felt like betrayal. And then eventually I took that validation of wanting to be accepted by a girl into dating, which does not go well. Mentioning the girls and when I was 16, 17 and my ex, you know. And now I've done so much work on myself that that's the one part of me that still feels like it's missing, is my inner child is screaming for that validation from somebody else, and I just know that's the one thing I can't give my younger self, because I think about my younger self a lot with that, because that's the core of my being. So the way I'm going to close this out is I may not be able to give, it may not be in my power to give my younger self and to give me, who I am now, the validation that I want, that he wants, but being the man that I am now, what matters is what I do with that as I continue to become the man that I am, because I see my younger self now, and I see myself as someone that needs to look after my younger self as I build into the man and protector and provider that I can be, in the best version of myself. And I don't know if you guys see that, if I've changed at all from the beginning of the year to now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little project. I know it was very deep, very emotional, but that was my life story. So I'm very excited to head into 2026, making videos with you guys again, and just starting this new chapter as I go, and as I continue to grow into the best version of myself, and I'll have you guys with me. So I love you guys, I appreciate you guys, and Happy New Year. You guys have an amazing holiday, amazing Christmas, and I'll see you guys in the next video very soon. Bye guys, love you guys. Again, thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I would not be here without you guys. And I genuinely mean that, because you guys are amazing. You guys make such an impact. And I plan on making a bigger community of people through YouTube. So, bye guys, love you guys.
Disguised as a gargoyle, the evil Xanatos swoops into attack, but mighty Goliath breaks free. Lexington fires, and heroic Brooklyn charges into battle on the Ribbon Rider cycle. Xanatos is strong, and Goliath
pain away. This is real, and you know it is. Can you feel the blood on your fingertips? Do you have what it takes to save a life? It's just who we are. We are monsters in the dark at night, just searching for purpose and shreds of light. The lullabies you sing to me lift the burdens you've engraved in me. I can't forget, but I'll forgive you for now. This is who we are. Monsters in the dark. Will you lie with me tonight? Sing me to sleep. Show me how to hold the wind and carry on. Will you lie with me tonight and help me see? Show me all the reasons I should be alive, and just lay with me tonight. Yeah, just lay with me tonight. The